Mr. Kip Sorensen, what is up, my brother?
Not much, man.
You ready
I'm
for another
excited.
AMA today?
Another AMA. Yeah. It's the best day of the week.
Because of the AMA or something else? It's
Yeah.
got to be something else.
Because I get to talk to you. It's the only time. By the way, everyone assumes that we probably have like consistent dialogue and we're having conversation all the time. Not really. This is like the only time that I get to speak with the beard is during AMA.
That's right. We keep it really efficient around here. So Kip's on my schedule. He's got to get a link for a calendar invite. He doesn't have my personal cell phone. Nothing like that. This is business only.
Business only. And I start asking questions like, "Oh, how you doing?" He's like, "Hey, we're here to record a podcast."
We're not going down that route. If you want to know how I'm doing, you put it in queue for a question, just like the rest of the guys.
Just like everyone else.
That's
yeah.
Right.
If I want to ask you a question, I have to add it to the AMA question.
That's right. Well, guys, for those of you who are joining us, we are answering questions from the Facebook group, which I think just cracked 60,000 members.
Nice.
That's insane. So check that out, facebook.com/group/Order of Man. The Iron Council, which is our exclusive brotherhood, at orderofman.com/Iron Council. And then I was also going to tell you, we just broke 50,000 YouTube subscribers. And you can check that out at youtube.com/Order of Man. And if you are on YouTube, my camera's being a little funky today with the
it's
in and out. Maybe I'll close the blinds. And then if you look right here behind me over my shoulder, you can see my TV. And occasionally, depending on the lighting, you can catch that I still have some of the pink wallpaper up. I've got most of it painted, but you'll catch a reflection now and then, and you'll see that there's still some pink wallpaper up in my office, which will be coming down soon.
And I do have some ideas for how I'm going to do this recording on video. It's going to be slick. I got some ideas. Ideas.
I'm anxious to see it.
Stay tuned.
Okay. Well, let's get right into the questions and see if we can get these guys some answers. And if we can't, we'll make something up.
Yeah, we're good at that.
We'll tell you that we can't and tell you to go to qualified sources of information.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully we have a gamut of qualified resources that we can point you to. And most of them, to be frank, guys, are previous episodes of the podcast. So you half these questions, or probably the majority of all these questions, have been answered on the Tuesday interview or discussions that Ryan has done with someone. The probability is really high.
Yeah,
really
I mean, going on almost 5 years now, we've had thousands and thousands of conversations. So we've likely covered it before, but hopefully we can give you a new perspective or insight that maybe you have not previously considered.
So I have one thing of business. In previous episodes, someone asked the question, and it was an episode that you did solo on the AMA, and I've been meaning to bring it up because it's a really pressing item, and I think it's a good discussion point. Is someone asked you the way the toilet paper should be on the outside or on the backside, and you said across the front, coming from the top.
Right. That's the officially sanctioned Order of Man way of putting toilet paper on the roll.
So my only challenge is
no, there is no challenge to that.
With a toddler, that is horrible, right? Because their ability to grab and pull.
Like, don't leave your kids unattended. Like, that's an easy solution. Be a good father.
Be a good father. It's not a problem.
That is true, though. That is true. They can access it more easily. But you know what? Any efficient toddler is going to get in there and have just as easy a time as pulling it from the other side as you would over the top, or she over the top.
Well played. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, I tried, guys. I tried.
Nobody's on your side. Like, who are you trying to tell them you tried? Everybody knows. Every man who's listening to this knows that it goes over the top.
What you don't realize is I've gotten pings saying, dude, Kip, you got to correct Ryan on that whole toilet paper thing.
Yeah, I'm sure. Those are all the Kurt Brim guys as well, I'm sure.
Which is also another funny thing. I'm sorry. I keep getting, now that we've done a few of these videos on YouTube, I'm getting messages saying, dude, you totally don't look like what I thought you would.
Yeah.
I'm totally curious.
They expecting?
I have no idea.
Oh, they don't tell you?
Well, I've asked a couple guys, but I don't want to ask everybody.
Yeah, they didn't realize. I don't know. I don't know if they were expecting somebody, more handsome or goofier or what? Like that could go so many ways.
Well, and it's funny because I don't think my voice is that unique, like Echo, for instance, right? On Jocko's podcast. The first time I saw who Echo was, I was like, whoa, that threw me off because his voice does not align with the way
that doesn't match up, right? Unless you know Echo and then his personality and you're like, oh, got it. Yeah,
that's true. That's true. Huh. Anyhow, I digress. So the questions today is fielded from Facebook. We addressed some Iron Council questions, I believe, last week and the week before. And so these are some Facebook questions. To join us there, go to facebook.com/group/Order of Man. All right. Our first question. I'm jacking up my mic here. Sorry.
I can see that. I can hear it too.
I know. I'm like super loud. Okay. Tamateo Rima. As someone who is about to get engaged, what questions should my spouse and I be asking ourselves as we move towards marriage? What questions to ask to establish a code or a value system for our marriage and relationship?
I don't know about specific questions, but topics that you definitely want to bring up are children. How many would you like to have? What is your thought process around raising kids? Where would you like to raise your kids? Do you want to stay here? Do you want to travel? Do you want to be around family? Do you not want to be around family? How many children do you want to have ideally? These are all very, very important things. Disciplining children, I think, is another very important topic along the same lines. Also, religion and spirituality, because that can create a lot of rift between people. Anything that's going to create some sort of animosity or contention in the relationship. Not that these things are necessarily deal breakers. There might be. You might find out that there's a deal breaker, and you probably ought to want to figure that out now and adjust accordingly. I'm not saying that's an easy thing to do with somebody you've been with potentially for years and love, but if it's a rough thing now and a deal breaker for you now and you decide to proceed, then it's only going to be a deal breaker down the road. But kids, disciplining kids, where you want to live. With raising kids, I would also ask and really dive into whether your wife wants to stay at home and raise the kids, or if she wants to go out into the workforce and pursue a career path, and how the kids are going to be taken care of in that perspective. I've known, for example, with my wife, she's a homemaker. She has been a homemaker since we had our first son and has never worked outside of the home after that. That's something that we knew. That wasn't a surprise or any guesswork for me. That was just what the expectation was because we had those discussions. Disciplining children, I may have already said. Also, finances. Finances is very, very important. You need to have some serious discussions about debt. I think people are getting married later in life, which means that there's probably some more baggage there. And when I say baggage, it could be previous relationships. It could be children from another marriage. It could be some emotional drama or baggage. It also could be financial baggage in the form of debt. You need to figure this stuff out because when you marry, you're going to assume all that. If she's got $50, $75, $100,000 worth of consumer debt or student loan debt, again, maybe not a deal breaker, but something you definitely need to be aware of and have a strategy and a plan for that. Is she a spender? How does she deal with difficult situations? Is she going to go out and spend a bunch of money and maybe complain to friends or family members? Like I'm kind of like taking this as a negative approach, and I don't mean it like that. I'm just saying address all of the potential red flags. Anticipate what you guys would potentially argue about or disagree about at least, and start talking about those things now before they come up.
Ryan, when I think about this question, the first thing that comes to mind is ensuring that your spouse has a growth mindset.
100%. Absolutely.
And without that, there's no evolution of change and becoming better if they're too much of a victim. And I know that's not maybe necessarily the question that he's asking, but me looking back at it, I think that's the first thing that I would validate is this person that I'm engaging with and having a relationship with, do they have a growth mindset? Are they open? Are they humble enough? Are they trying to become better physically, mentally, in every way? If that's the foundation, then I really feel that almost anything else can be kind of dealt with. If they don't have that, I mean, there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I wholeheartedly agree. And I can't tell you how often we hear from guys who say things like, I'm trying to grow. I'm trying to get better. I'm going to conferences. I'm working out. I'm doing all these things to improve myself, and my wife doesn't appreciate it. Or, how do you get a wife who's not motivated on board? I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You can lead by example. You can prod a little bit. You can try to tie it into something that she's engaged with or meaningful for her. But ultimately, if she doesn't have this growth-oriented mindset, maybe you have a dud. And I hate saying it like that, but you want to know now, and you want to address it accordingly before you get yourself into a marriage, and then realize that 5, 7, 10 years down the road, when you guys have 2.5 kids together and the white picket fence and everything else, and then everything shatters and falls down around you because you built it on this faulty foundation that wasn't mutually agreeable.
Yeah, totally. You said something I think is profound, and it was around the space of, if it's difficult now, or if it's a red flag now, it's certainly going to be one later. That is so true.
I've even heard from therapists who, and this is horrible, that recommend that those who are having relationship problems, that they get married, and that will fix things. Marriage is hard. It's hard work. And there's a lot of guys that are listening that says, oh, marriage is stupid. It's a broken institution. I don't believe that. To me, it's difficult, but it's worth fighting for.
Worth the difficulty. Yeah.
100%. I mean, so is going to the gym is difficult. So should I not do it? Having an uncomfortable conversation is difficult. So should I not do it? No, it's not why we do or don't do things. It's the ultimate result. So I've heard that advice, get married. I've also heard the advice of struggling marriages to have kids. Have a kid. That'll bring you guys together. Know that a child is quite literally a wedge between you and your partner. And again, I'm not saying don't have kids. I'm saying that realize it's not easy. It's a very difficult thing. And you're not going to draw closer or fix something by having a child or rushing into a marriage. Yeah. It's only going to get worse.
On the flip side of this, I'm curious if you agree with this, because me personally, I had this issue when I got married. I believed, or I thought that it should be like, I had this expectation that it was going to be super easy. And if it wasn't easy and perfect, then something was wrong.
Yeah.
And I remember I got in a fight. This is my first couple of years of my marriage. I got in this, you know how it is, some fight that I don't even remember what it was. It was over something probably stupid, who knows what. And I remember I called my brother, and I'm just ranting, right, man, and this and that. And I'm, sharing my drama and all this, how tough this whole thing is. And then he just starts laughing on the phone. He just starts laughing. He's like, oh my gosh, this is so funny. And I'm like, what are you laughing about?
Right.
I was angry. And he's like, welcome to marriage.
Yeah.
It's hard. Don't accept it. You always strive to make it better, but guess what? It's not easy. But I was approaching it from the perspective of, oh, well, if it's hard, then it's wrong. It shouldn't be this way. And I made a mistake. Almost from that perspective, not from the perspective of, okay, this is hard. Let's deal with the circumstance and move on. And by the way, this is somewhat normal. So don't add too much meaning to the fact that it's hard. That was a new concept to me. And so through the years, whenever young couples of friends are getting married or whatever, and we have to write a card, right? A congratulations card. I always write something in there like, this is going to be the hardest thing that you will ever do. And that's perfect.
Yeah, that's what they need.
Stick with it, push through, endure, try for an amazing marriage, make it amazing, but just know it's not going to be easy. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's not. I think that's a trap of modern times, is that we believe that things are supposed to be easy and comfortable and everything should just work and be smooth. And if it doesn't, then maybe you're on the wrong path, or you're pursuing the wrong career, or you don't have the right woman. It doesn't
trade the car in, man. Yeah. Just trade the car in if it's not working.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means there's some character deficiencies and flaws between her and you.
Yeah.
And you're going to need to figure it out if you want to maintain the relationship and the marriage.
Yeah. All right, Michael Johnson, how long after a serious relationship do you start dating again?
This gets into the should question, like what should I do, or what's the right thing to do? Yeah. There's no answer to that. I can't answer that. There is no answer. The only answer is when you feel like you're ready. I should say this. You feel like you're ready enough.
Yeah.
Because you're probably not going to be 100% ready. It's always good. I hated the dating scene, man. I hated the dating scene. And you're never going to be completely ready. You're never going to be 100% at ease if you're trying to get back into the dating scene. But you might be ready enough. So I can't answer that question for you. I would say that you probably, unless this was something serious, like a serious marriage and you were together for 20 years, you probably ought to jump into it, at least casually, quicker than you would think. I'm not saying you need to look further than your next girlfriend or your next life partner, but man, go have some fun with members of the opposite sex. And I would say don't lead her along, don't play it to something it's not, but just go be around women. I like being around women. I like the presence of females. And so you don't have to get married to the next woman that comes along. But if you're young and it wasn't very serious, your previous relationship, then jump in, go have some fun, keep the expectations low, get yourself back in the game.
And start learning what works for you and what doesn't and whatnot.
Yeah.
I actually have a funny story about this. So as most guys know, I got divorced. I was in my late 20s, 2 kids, dating, which was horrible.
Oh, I bet. I can't imagine.
I'm just like, I couldn't handle it. The girls I was dating were like, some of them were like out of college. And so they're like, oh, I'm so full of stress. I have this paper due. I'm like,
yeah,
I just can't
red
relate.
Flag,
Like
man.
that was so long ago for me. Like it was awkward. But to Michael's question, what was funny is I was dating a few girls and it was quasi getting serious. And when you have kids, it's unfortunate because I played this game of like, I don't want them around my kids too often until it's more serious. And then they would use that as a measuring stick to see like, oh, well, we're not that serious because he hasn't introduced me to the boys yet. And it was this weird dynamic, but regardless, I dated a couple girls and it started getting pretty serious. And we started having those conversations and I didn't feel ready. Right. And my default opinion was it's too soon, right? I'm not ready yet. I'm still damaged goods or whatever phrase that you want to use. And then I met Asia. And the next day I was like, I think I'm going to marry her.
Really? That quick?
Which was funny because apparently it had nothing to do with how long it's been since I've been divorced. I thought it was, but it wasn't. It just wasn't the right girl. Once I met the right girl, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm ready.
And so everything's been blissful and peaceful and
it's been perfect ever since. Yeah, we don't argue or anything. Yeah.
I actually think arguing is a good thing in a relationship to a degree. Isn't that what you want essentially out of a life partner? Somebody who's going to challenge you
and debate a little bit. Yeah.
Well, I don't mean when I say challenge, that's right. When I say challenge, I'm not saying just be a complete pain in the rear. I'm saying somebody who's going to challenge you to step up, to level up. My wife does that for me and I do it for her. We challenge each other in positive and constructive ways. And sometimes that's smooth and other times, there's some resistance on one of our parts, but we challenge each other to improve. And part of that means that at times we're going to disagree and debate and potentially get into arguments, but it's all done from a position of, hey, I'm vested in this thing. I want this thing to work. And it would be weird if you didn't argue. To me, I think if you didn't argue, you probably just don't care enough about the relationship or her potentially, or yourself.
Or you're not engaged on anything.
Right.
You're just both passive and letting them do whatever. And
I know some people like that, and it's not, it seems okay on the surface right now, but to me, it's a volcano just brewing under the surface. It looks docile and it looks dormant right now, but it's brewing. It's down there. And when the slightest little thing, the slightest little variable happens, a disagreement or a misunderstanding or a miscommunication or a misperception, boom, the thing erupts and it's all over.
Yeah. And I like this, if you don't mind me suggesting this, because I think sometimes guys in a relationship might see if their wife is not expressing those things, right, or not challenging them in some unique way, that they may assume that it's her choice. Well, it's always her choice. But they'll assume that she's not doing that because she's just choosing not to, and take no ownership in that. We got to be mindful sometimes that our spouses may not choose to express their feelings or what is going on with them or their opinion because you have bulldozed them in the past. That she has expressed something to you and then you're like, nah, 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 and you cut her off and you bulldoze her, and then she probably has some internal dialogue of, well, I'm not going to share my opinion again. Yeah. So we got to be mindful if she is being somewhat passive with you and not communicating, the probability is you probably own a great portion of why that's not happening.
And if you do, I think your marriage is going to be better.
Yeah.
I already know. I know we're going to get messages from guys who are like, well, you're just making yourself subservient to her, and you're taking the burden of responsibility or blame. No, you're not being unrealistic. You're not saying that she doesn't have her part to play in it. You're just accepting a part that you have control over. That's it. That's not subservient. That's not unmanly. It's just that you accept a burden of some of the responsibility and you correct the behavior to the degree that you can.
Yeah. And it's effective communication. How often does that happen in the workplace, or even on a more minor perspective, like kids? Like I think about that sometimes when I get riled up at our kids and I'm like, oh, I get frustrated. And I think, wait a second, hold on. I'm the adult and I can't manipulate my communication well enough to get that kid to listen to me. That's not a good sign.
And I love, yeah, great point. And I love when people say, and when I say I love, I kind of get a kick out of it. It's funny to me. It's comical at this point when I hear guys say, well, that's just the way I am. Take it or leave it. It's just who I am. I'm like, that is such an immature, incomplete thought. That's what little boys say. But men say, oh, you know what? I can adapt. I can change. I can utilize different tools. I can implement different strategies in my communication to be more effective. Because ultimately what you're trying to do is to get somebody to do something. Another word for that is influence.
Yeah.
And that means that you're going to need to not change fundamentally who you are, but change or adapt the strategy to elicit the correct response out of your partner or your child or your employee or your team member, or fill in the blank.
Yeah. Teacher, boss. I mean, we
whatever.
Our teenage boys, we say this to them all the time. Gabby's like, oh, I don't like my teacher, blah, blah. Dude, play the game.
Yeah.
How do you get him to like you? What would you need to do? That's what you need to do to establish a positive relationship with someone. It's not, and I don't think it's manipulation because it's rooted in trying to be effective.
I think it's exactly manipulation. I think that's exactly what it is. We think that manipulation is negative. It's not.
Yeah.
For example, if I notice that the audio on this podcast is off, then I can adjust the microphone here and I can manipulate this arm so that the audio is more clear, closer to me. It sounds better. Is that negative? No, it's actually positive. You're manipulating something in order to produce a positive and effective outcome. So I would be very, very careful of affixing a negative connotation to the word manipulation. We're so afraid to use it. Oh, heaven forbid we say influence or manipulate. Guys, words have meaning, and what meaning we're attaching to them is what matters. So I don't care if you want to use that word or something else, but ultimately you are trying to get people to respond. And if sometimes I'm going to be more vocal or more commanding in my delivery, and other times I'm going to be more empathetic and try to be more understanding, because that type of response is what's going to elicit a change of behavior or thought process in another human being that I have a responsibility for.
I think it's negative because most people assume that you're out of integrity and you're being a way that you're not, or you're being dishonest.
Correct.
Then the issue is being out of integrity or being dishonest. It's not actually in the manipulation itself.
I agree with that. It's the intent behind it, and the old adage of why you're doing it or how you do it is just as important as what you're actually doing. So a lot of people will say things, we've heard this as well, that how does it go? The outcome justifies the means, right? No, it doesn't. I agree in some levels, but I think probably more accurate, more or a higher percentage of the time, is that by doing the right things the right way will naturally, inevitably yield a better result a higher percentage of the time.
Totally.
So the outcomes don't justify the means if you're using that as a rationalization to do something unethical, illegal, or immoral. But
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people that don't agree with that.
Yeah. Well, and what's the purpose of life? To have? Oh, outcome. I got all what I wanted. No, it's about how you show up and the kind of man you were, which is all about how you do things, not necessarily the outcome or what we get from our actions.
The outcome handles itself.
Yeah.
You want to be fit? Go to the gym and work out correctly. Eat right. You could, if you did that, there's nothing you could do to deviate or alter the result. Right? Like if you ate correctly and you consumed the right nutrients, the right foods, and you exercise correctly, there's nothing else you could do that would change that result. So that's why in the battle plan, we talk about this so much, is you need to have a vision. You need to understand what you want. You need to know what type of man you want to be. You need to fixate your attention and your focus on some objective. But once you have the target locked in, now you have to work backwards into the tactics and then start focusing your time, energy, attention on the tactics rather than the result they will yield. Because what guys will do is, if they're so fixated on the target, we have a tendency of being impatient. I've talked a lot about that personally for myself. And I realized that I'm not achieving the goal as fast as I'd like. Let's take the gym, for example. Okay, if your goal is to lose 20 pounds and that's what you're fixated on, if you only lose half a pound this week, you're going to be upset and you're going to start to deviate the course when that would have worked had you just maintained it. Yeah. Because your attention wasn't on the tactic. It was overly and hyper focused on the result rather than the tactic that's going to yield the result. And this is why having subject matter experts who are communicating with you and you're learning from is very, very important. Is because what they'll do is they'll help you get over those hurdles and keep you fixated on the activity. Yeah. That's why, for example, when it comes to working out, hiring a coach is a very important thing to do, whether that's going into a CrossFit gym or even purchasing or subscribing to some online course from credible and reputable experts, because they're going to help you maintain the course of action when you can't fully see the target. So I spent time in the military. I was in the National Guard, and then of course I did my active duty tour in Ramadi, Iraq, and we were an artillery unit. So we were using howitzers, particularly the Paladin, and it's indirect fire as opposed to direct fire. So I'm trying to simplify this, but direct fire is basically engaging with a target you can see. Right? Indirect fire is engaging with a target that you can't see.
And is it to generate coverage or to
distance,
adjust them, maintain distance, those kind of things?
Maintain distance, maintain the element of surprise. There's a lot of reasons that go into that. But of course, the further you can be from a target and still engage, the safer you are.
Yeah.
Right? So this indirect fire is more like life than direct fire, in that there's so many other things that get in the way that might cloud our ultimate objective that we may not see it, that it's very easy to lose our way. It's the same thing with land navigation. You know, if you have a map in front of you and you see this mountain you're trying to get to and you notice that it's due east, and I'm not a land nav expert, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong, the concept will work. It's due east and you start walking, you're like, I'm just going to walk east. So here's where I am. There's that. Okay, I'm going to walk east. You're going to get off course, right? Because you have to navigate rocks and rivers and a mountain, and then there's different forces at work that are taking you off path and off course. And then if you don't have a compass constantly checking your heading, you're going to get off course and you're not going to hit that ultimate objective because you can't see it and you have nothing to measure your current path against.
Well, and if you're not looking up to validate where east is and your head is down,
right,
saying I'm heading that way, well,
right. What is that?
You're going to eventually go north and who knows what. Yeah,
exactly. So there's so many different scenarios why the battle plan works so well. I have no idea how in the world we got to this conversation based on
was this off
when
of
should I
serious
start
relationship?
But I think it's all valuable stuff.
That's funny. I don't even know how that translated. Battle plan. Ryan was able to successfully tell you about the battle plan from someone asking about serious relationships.
Well played. Well played.
All right.
What do we got next?
Pedro Capiner. How does one kid keep a strong faith if at home the parents act differently than at church?
Okay, so here's something that we hear in our church culture quite a bit. Kip, you'll agree with me on this.
Yeah.
Is that the church is perfect, the people are not. Right? We hear that.
Yeah.
And I even take that with a grain of salt, because even the establishment of the church, and when I say the church, I'm talking about our church, LDS, right? Even the establishment of the LDS church was established by men who were,
not perfect.
Right, not perfect, right? So I even take that with a grain of salt. But the adage and the idea is the same, is that people are imperfect. You're judging your parents for being imperfect. Well, guess what? You're imperfect too. So you don't need to judge what is true or what you believe to be true based on somebody else's interpretation, behavior, actions, or words, because it actually has very little to do with that. Like, we hear it a lot. It's like, so many members of the church are hypocritical. Yeah, all of us are. They happen to be members of the church, but they also happen to be human beings. We all have character flaws. So does that mean that the church that you are engaged with is wrong? No, it just means somebody's a human being. So I would be very, very careful of attaching people's behavior to a particular church. Now, one thing I would be careful of is if somebody is using their church or their doctrine or their scriptures to justify their behavior that you know is not correct or not moral. That's something different. That's not what I'm talking about here. But look, we all have flaws. We all have things that we're working on. The way that they behave certainly might be hypocritical, not excusing them of that, but it doesn't necessarily represent what your faith is about and what it represents. Because isn't faith really just, to go back to the land nav thing, it's something to aim for. And we're all on the path, right? Kip, you and I are on the path. We have a similar objective because of our faith, but it's our faith that keeps us on the path. Now, we all got on that path at different points. We're all in different starting points. Yeah. We've all been dealt a hand that we are going to have to navigate a little differently. But ultimately, we're trying to get to the same place because of the shared faith that we have, although our circumstances might be different. So these individuals aren't perfect, your parents in this case, and you're not perfect. They're trying to get there. Afford them some grace, just like you hope that somebody would afford you some grace.
Yeah. And when you think about them specifically, would you rather have them not go to church because they're quote unquote hypocrites?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
Right. The guy sinning the night before, like I used to have this mentality when I was younger, you know, you're in high school and you have certain kids that are like a certain way in high school, right? Probably not the best of kids. And then they're at church and you're thinking, oh, that guy's a hypocrite. But a mature way of seeing that is good. I'm glad they're there because now they have the opportunity to repent or hear a different message, and maybe that might benefit them. Like if anything, any church for that matter should be full of sinners. Like, and I don't care what their sins are, they should all be there.
And by the way, and I'll say this, and you know this as well, is that when you and I are in congregation, we are among those sinners.
Totally. Right? Totally. Without a doubt. Yeah. But we should never say, oh, they shouldn't be here because their sins are greater in some unique way. It's like, no, everyone should be there, even if they just sinned the night before. I don't care. It's a good place for them to be. One thought for Pedro here is it's ironic how you perceive something will drastically change your approach. That same conversation about parents acting differently at church, I didn't have that personally, but I had two parents that were, for all intents and purposes, during my high school years, were virtually inactive, right? They never went to church, and for their own reasons. Now, I could have used that and said, oh, well, I'm not going to go because they're not going to go. But I actually twisted that, turned it on its head, and I saw it as, oh, well, this is even more important that I should go.
Mm-hmm.
And it was even more of a driving factor that they weren't going, that I should actually go. So it's a lot about how we perceive things and use it to strengthen you. Don't use it to weaken you. And it's all about, I don't know. Understand what I'm trying to say? It's how we choose, or the meaning that we want to add around it could really benefit us, or it could be a negative thing for us as well.
100%. Yeah. I would also add, in addition to that, I think you're spot on with that, is find other people who are walking the path that you're choosing to walk through as well. It's not enough to look at things negatively or see the faults in things and then just assume because you see the faults, then you're going to navigate a different path. You have to consciously make that decision as well. That's part of the reason that I do this podcast. When I started the Order of Man podcast in the spring of 2015, I just wanted to have some conversations with men who inspired me. Period. That's it.
Yeah.
Now it's turned into something else. No, I wouldn't say something else entirely, but it's grown exponentially from that day, and it's become a lot more meaningful and significant than those early days. But I was inspired by guys like Brett McKay with Art of Manliness, and I still am. I was inspired by, too many men to even name and list. And I just wanted to have good conversations with them because I believed that if I put myself in the vicinity of them and had conversations, that I could learn something that would help me on my own path. And that's certainly been the case.
Yeah. That's cool. All right. Chase Tilton, what role does therapy play in reconciling a marriage, keeping it strong, fixing yourself when in a rut, and maintaining your own mental health?
Well, it's been a long time since I've been to either individual therapy or, I was a kid. I did some therapy. My mom got me involved in therapy, and frankly, I hated it. That was a bad experience. That actually goes into our last question as to, does therapy work?
Depends on the therapist,
right? I
right?
believe it can, but it's the therapist that might have more to play at that than anything else. Well, and the patient, for lack of a better term, too. Like if you go in there with a mindset, this is crap and it's not going to help, and this is a waste of time and stupid, then yeah, it is a waste of time and it's not going to help and it's stupid because you're going to self-manifest that. But I went to some therapy when my wife and I went through our separation, and having a mediator there to help us understand our own thought processes, to help us interpret a lack of, or an inability to communicate effectively on both my wife and my part, was extremely invaluable, I would say. She was like a translator for us in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand what was going on with my wife. I remember one exercise in particular. Our therapist said, Ryan, what do you do to communicate your love for your wife? And I said, well, I get up and I go to work and I provide and I do everything I can to grow this business. And I feel like if I can provide for her financially and have a home, then I'm communicating love. And my wife was like, well, all that I see is that you leave and you don't want to be here and you aren't engaged with me. You're more engaged with your work. And then she asked my wife, she said, well, what do you do to help with this? You see, so she interpreted that for us, and neither one of us saw what the other one saw. It was lost in translation.
Yeah. Well,
So
and I wondered too, Ryan, is if you were clear on that, and then you went to your wife and said, well, honey, I'm doing this and this and this because I love you, if she would have bought that, right? Versus if it came from a third party, she was like, oh, okay. Like it's a little bit easier to accept certain things when it's coming from a third party as well
Well, and
than just clarity from you, maybe.
I do hear what you're saying, but I don't think that's a mark of a good therapist. I think the mark of a great therapist is to just interject periodically to help navigate those waters. So it wouldn't be like, see, this is what he means, Trisha.
Yeah.
It's more like, okay,
cue it up.
Well, so Ryan, when you do that, that's communicating love. Trisha, what does that communicate to you? Okay, instead of that, what would communicate love?
Yeah.
And now Trisha comes back and she says, well, this and this and this actually means love. Like, oh, well, I didn't realize that. And to your point earlier about going to communicate that to Trisha is like, if I go in there without a therapist or a third party and without recognizing, I'm going to go in and say, well, I do this and this and this. What's your problem? Why don't you appreciate me?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Totally.
How many guys are listening to this that have either had that thought or literally said those words? Why don't you appreciate everything I'm doing for you?
Yeah.
Because it's not communicating it, or you're not communicating, or your actions aren't communicating what she needs. I don't doubt that you mean it. I just don't know if she's receiving it that way. Yeah. So to answer your question, what role does therapy play? Look, it's been a long time. It's been over 10 years since my wife and I went to therapy. Would it serve us well? Yeah, probably. I tend to lean more towards that it's a good thing. And it could be very, very valuable especially in a strained relationship, but potentially even in a unstrained or a healthy relationship too.
Yeah. Asia and I think our marriage is going great. Once a month, we go to a therapist.
You do?
Mm-hmm. Once a month, we just have this reoccurring meeting. And sometimes we go in there and we're like, so what you talk about? And we'll try to, we'll think of something, or, we'll just drum up some shit in the past. And I'm just joking. We don't do that.
Good. Well, I mean, in a healthy way, I think it can be valuable, right?
No, but it's really great. Like the way we see it is kind of a proactive. I don't know. We just think it's valuable. So we've done it in the past, and we thought, let's just go once a month and just, if there's something pressing, or perhaps there was a scenario between meetings where I struggled with communicating something clearly or whatever, we'll kind of have an after action review and go, okay, what worked, what didn't work? How could I have communicated that more effectively? Or why did that bother me? And sometimes, let's be honest, like half the time, I just feel like I'm nerding out with him. It's super fun. I'm like, okay, so what you're saying is this affects this. And he's like, exactly. And I just think it's a really fun conversation. Like I would actually just take it on lunch and just pick his brain about all kinds of stuff. I really enjoy that. But it's just effective.
Yeah.
And we use it as a proactive way to just ensure everything's communicated clearly and that nothing goes untouched. Because it does. There's a tendency sometimes for us to go, I don't want to handle this right now.
Oh, that's
I don't want to deal with this right now. I'm going to put this under the rug and we'll talk about it later. Right. And that's one of the things that I've talked with him about is like, why are we slipping? And he's like, you're slipping because in those moments you've pushed it off and said, hey, I'll talk about it later. And you've done that too many times. And now your guys' you're starting to have a communication breakdown. You got to stay on top of it. And so we've established rules like if something's bothering you, you need to talk about it within a 24-hour period. It's okay for me to go to her and say, now's not right. Now's not a good time. Let's talk about it later today, but it needs to be discussed. Yeah. There's no like, it doesn't bother me anymore, so let's not talk about it, right? That doesn't exist. So
I think that's a valid point. I mean, look, I don't do that, but I can see the value in it. Take it in another context. You take your car in to get the oil changed every 3,000 to 5,000 miles if you're me, but your car's not. Your indicator lights probably aren't on. Your car's not running poorly. Like it's running well still. Like it's getting you from point A to point B. It's going as fast as it always did. It's not overheating, and yet you still take it in to get your oil changed. It's just preventative maintenance. I think in a lot of contexts that makes sense, and this is one area that, frankly, I haven't considered.
Yeah, we like it. All right, Jake Bush. What's Kip's story? I've heard bits and pieces. Granted, I've only been listening for about 4 months. So that's problem number one, Jake, by the way, only 4 months.
Yeah.
Where has his biggest life struggles and success been? How has he dealt with them? I'll let you answer the question.
Oh, you want me to answer? What's Kip's story? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. Like he's weaseled his way into the Order of Man organization, and I'm trying to figure out how it all happened.
Yeah. Yeah. This guy is so inauthentic. We have no idea what's truth or anything else.
Well, I mean, just from my perspective, I think that you're somebody who has added a lot of value, of course, to what we've done. You came into this organization with, I think, a healthy dose of skepticism, especially up front, where you joined the Facebook group and you thought, "What is this?"
Yeah.
Ended up joining the Iron Council. Then, not long after the Iron Council, you started leading Team Echo and did a phenomenal job. I recognize that, and so you started you were a team leader mentor and did a phenomenal job there, and I recognize that. And then you became more of the team leader liaison, which is helping manage all of the teams and all of the team leaders. And then with regards to the podcast, I believe that you had a different perspective, that you brought a set of skills and ideas and thought processes that I think were lacking, that I didn't quite have, and would make a great addition to the Wednesday show. So I approached you about doing an Ask Me Anything, and I thought having a co-host would be a lot of fun and give multiple perspectives and angles for this. And we've been doing that for just a little over a year now, I think.
Yeah.
And it's been going really, really, really well. So that's what I don't know your personal story. I'm not going to get into that. You can do that if you want.
Yeah. I queued that up, man. I needed some affirmation of feeling good about myself. So I
hope I gave you enough.
Oh, better. Yeah, that was good.
By the way, we're going to stop doing the AMAs. They haven't been doing that well. So
yeah. Yep. Well, his one question is, where has his biggest life struggles and successes been? How's this? I thought about this question, and I'm not going to answer Jake's question specifically, but I think it's an interesting concept. When I read this, I was concerned about telling my story. Does it make sense? Like, I have it all queued up about some sob story.
You think it's too polished or rehearsed? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, not so much that, but like, is that real? My sob story? You know what I mean?
I don't even like the concept of a story. Like, what's the story? It's like, the story is something that's
my interpretation,
really well thought out, and it's your life. It's your life.
Or it's my interpretation of some sob thing about to lift me up, to feel good about myself so I can impress other people. Like, do we really want to know that? Is that really that valuable? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
It's just interesting, right? Because because I've done this. I've done this a lot of my life. I've had my story, right? Everything from, and I'm downplaying it on purpose, everything from was youngest boy raised on a dairy farm, first kid in my family, to third kid out of 9 to actually graduate high school, first to ever go to college, right? And I wear those as a badge, right? Oh, look at me. I rised above my upbringing. Yeah, I went to college. And it's like, okay, yeah. Is it that big of a deal? Especially if I'm using it as a way to prop myself up and or have people feel sorry for me, or the way I was born and raised. Does it make sense?
Yes.
And I don't
welcome
know.
to the world
I don't know if it's that
social
valuable.
Media.
Yeah.
Look, I do it too, but it is hard because sometimes you just want to say, I'm a guy that gets a few things right, that messes up some other things, and I'm trying to be better.
Yeah, totally. So Jake, there you go. I'm on the AMA podcast. I'm in the Iron Council. Those are all the successes and struggles. I think one thing that has been a good struggle for me is I was raised to be very independent, which has its pros and cons. And I went through a divorce in my early years during college, and that struggle really forced my hand on my awareness of how I was showing up as a man. I don't think that would have happened if I didn't get divorced. Very similar to your story, Ryan, when you guys separated and it kind of shook your foundation a little bit. That shook my foundation, and it really forced me to evaluate how I was showing up, the kind of husband I was being, the kind of dad I was being. And it was like night and day mentality. I was a victim one day, and the next day I owned the way my life turned out, and I took ownership over it. And so that hand was forced. It wasn't like my own enlightening, right? But it was something that I was kind of forced to learn, and that obviously put me on a different path in regards to how I saw life. So
I want to disagree with you on something here, and I know it's gonna sound funny because you're
disagreeing with my story.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. No, I am gonna disagree with something. You said that your hand was forced, and
that's true,
and it wasn't forced. And I want to pay you a compliment here, and something that I've always respected and admired about you. One thing you talk a lot about is the meaning we attach to things, right? And usually when you're talking about it, you're saying don't attach negative meaning to it. But we can just as easily interpret something as positive. That's actually the same thing. You're attaching positive meaning to it. You've decided,
which could be good.
Right.
Yeah.
So your hand was not forced. You were in a difficult situation. Part of it was your fault. Part of it was not. And you chose to attach the meaning that would serve you best. And there's millions and millions of men out there who have chosen to attach the meaning that would not serve them or anybody else. And they wallow in their own self-pity, and they disengage from life and women and responsibility altogether. A lot of these guys are clinically or chronically depressed, potentially even suicidal. And barring mental health illness, I would say a lot of these guys have chosen this path through the meaning that they've attached. Where I've always admired and respected you is that you seem to be a man who is willing to take what most would consider a negative situation and attach a positive spin to it so that you can improve yourself. You're not forced to do that. There's so many people who haven't, but you've deliberately, intentionally made yourself into a more capable, well-rounded husband, father, leader in your community, consultant within your business, and a better man in general. So I disagree with you, but in the same context, pay you that compliment that you weren't forced, that you chose that path.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a good point. And that's probably a clarification we should make more often. Sometimes when we talk about adding meaning, is add the right meaning or the most effective meaning.
Yes.
Yeah. I like that.
Cool.
All right. Chase Tilton, in your opinion, why is jiu-jitsu better or more enjoyable martial art than others like karate, Muay Thai, and etc.?
Better is a weird word to use right there.
I know. That's a lot of meaning you're adding there, Chase.
I mean, is it better if you're on the ground with an unarmed individual and you guys are on the ground together? I would probably say in my limited perception and knowledge that yes, it would be better than another skill. Is it better when you're faced with an active shooter and you're trying to keep people safe and yourself out of danger than understanding some tactical skills with a firearm? Of course not.
Yeah.
So the point is it's not better. It's just a tool that you might want to have at your disposal. And then you can add it to everything else you have at your disposal. I'll let you answer that part in a second, because I want to answer the second part of this question. Why do you enjoy it more? Again, I haven't tried every martial art. This is just the one that I frankly fell into. A lot of guys in my circle practice jiu-jitsu, and I decided I wanted to try it. So yeah, maybe I would like something better or like something more, but I haven't tried everything. So I enjoy this. Why do I like it? Because it's hard. I enjoy the physical nature of it. This morning when I was training, I got kneed in the eye, and it hurt actually really bad.
Like
and
the socket?
Yeah, just right dead center. And I wanted to stop. I couldn't see. It was all teary-eyed and stuff. And I wanted to stop. And I was on top, and this guy's guard, Brody's guard, and he's like, "Are you all right, man?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can't see right now. And he's like, oh, you want to stop? I'm like, no, I want to keep going. Because in a fight, like, I'm not going to say, oh, timeout. You know, like, I can't see in my eye or anything.
Yeah. I poke.
Yeah. So I said, no, I want to keep going. And so I rolled with my eyes closed until I got enough, you know, back in where I could see okay. I liked it. I like that. I like the physical nature of it. I like pushing myself physically. I like being in uncomfortable situations. I like getting physically stronger. I like that I can actually see my progress. I really enjoy experimenting with new techniques and strategy. I just like it. I enjoy everything about it. After I'm done with a session, I'm stiff and sore everywhere, and I get into my car painfully and slowly, and I even like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but those are a
That's
few of
crazy.
the things that I enjoy. Although most people probably hear that and think, what is this guy on? What's he thinking about? But if you practice, then you probably feel the same way.
Totally. And I don't want to get into the better mentality. I think you live in Thailand and you do jiu-jitsu, you should probably learn Muay Thai because that would be better for you, right? Or if you're in a Thai fight. So it all varies. Enjoyable for me. I don't know, man. Like I do jiu-jitsu obviously a lot. I did some stand-up for a while. It's fun to punch. It is super fun. So I really enjoy that too. But for me, I choose the one that I think I had enjoyed the most. And that is probably the most effective for me personally. And that happens to be jiu-jitsu. And for all the same similar reasons, it's the grind of it. I love the practical point of it. I was speaking with someone, in fact, just last week, this is a good example of this. This girl does Krav Maga, which for you guys, Krav Maga is like the martial art for Israeli military. And it is like, just think of straight up dirty.
It's
like
brutal.
It's like everything's about fish hooking, stopping the groin,
Eye gouging.
headbutt, eye gouge. Like it's craziness, right? And it's so cool and it's fun. The difference though is it's hard to practice that. Like
Sure.
really honestly
How do you
practice
gouge somebody's eye in training?
Yeah, and that's one benefit that jiu-jitsu has is when I get to train with Ryan, if we both decide, and it's funny, we both don't need to decide. If one person decides to go 100%, the other person will adjust.
True.
But you can go 100%. I could use every fiber of my being to do jiu-jitsu with someone, and we can walk away somewhat probability of being uninjured. We might be sore and exhausted, whatever, but I can practice that art to its full extent, right? Right now, our school is prepping for we have a tournament here in Utah, a big tournament, and everyone's in tournament mode, right? Everyone is just 100% balls to the wall, and we can do that. You can't do that in many martial arts. You can't punch you in the face. I can't punch you in the face 100% all the time with Muay Thai. We have to use pads.
I could take it. I could take it 100%. I mean, the average man maybe, but
my fist couldn't handle punching your face is what I meant. But you gotta say you can't practice those things 100%. And so that's one benefit of jiu-jitsu that's really nice. We could go 100% with each other. And the other aspect of it, and it's really unique, and I don't know if this exists in other martial arts. I haven't found this in other martial arts. But such a cliche thing to say in the jiu-jitsu community, but the human chess portion is amazing to me.
Sure.
Your interview with Deco, at one point you guys were talking about learning jiu-jitsu. He's been doing it for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he alluded to, and I don't remember exact verbiage, but he alluded to this on the podcast, that he's still learning because jiu-jitsu never stops. There's no like, set 100 moves, you learn them and you know it all. Because guess what? By the time you learn those 100 moves, someone just invented something else. Or they do it slightly different than the way you do it. And you evolve it and it becomes your own. And so it's forever evolving and changing. I've been doing jiu-jitsu consistently now for 12 years. And it's not uncommon that I could even go to a white belt class and be listening to instruction and go, oh, I never saw that before.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like there's an aspect that I haven't seen yet in
At
12
that level,
years of training. Like you would assume I saw it all by now. No.
Right. Yeah.
And it's because guys are innovating. They're constantly innovating and coming up with new things. So I love that aspect of it. And I love the bait, the switch, the setup. Oh, I'm going to do this. He's going to attack my arm. And then I'm going to do, that aspect is super fun. I know that happens in counters, but I don't think they go as deep in the world of jiu-jitsu where my chess game is set up with 5 different options. They choose option 1. Then I have these 3 options. Like, I don't think that happens as much on counter punches when we talk about stand-up. I know it does because there's counters, but I don't know if they go like 3 levels deep.
Yeah.
So.
No, I like what you said. You know, one of the things I was thinking about is this morning I was going with a buddy of mine. We train together in the mornings, and we're both white belts. So white belt warriors, like we go to battle, and it's not pretty, and it's probably really inefficient, and we're probably exposing ourselves to unnecessary risk. But it's good too. And we were training this morning. He's like, yeah, I just don't know how hard to go. Like, I don't know if I want to. I'm like, go as hard as you can. I'm like, I do the same. I do the same thing to you. I'll put my forearm in your throat. I have no problem with that. And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, dude, I'll tap. Like if you're going 100% and I don't like something or it hurts or whatever, I'll tap and no hard feelings. Like that's the point. The other day I was rolling with this guy. His name's Levi, and he's this big, strong. You rolled with him, I think, at immersion camp.
Yeah.
Big, strong, tree trunk legged, barrel chested dude. Yeah. And he was on top of me and he was in side guard, and I tapped to just pressure because the way he had me, and I just didn't want to tap to it. Dude, it would hurt. It hurt. And he was going 100%, and I didn't ask him to go 90 or 80. I said, okay, I'm going to go 100% too. And then you tap and you start over and you do it again. So I like it.
That's funny.
All right.
Okay. We could just, now we're all just reminiscing.
There you go. Jiu-jitsu's better.
Yeah. Just jiu-jitsu's better.
Hey, one other thing I'll say on that, Kip, is I think a lot of the times people will say that. And I'm not suggesting he is asking it for this reason, but it seems to me a lot of people ask questions like that to debate. Right? Is like, well, I don't know because of this or whatever. Look, we're not here to convince you. I don't have to sell you jiu-jitsu. I don't have to sell you on going to therapy. I don't have to sell you on having a conversation with your future wife. We're not here to convince you. We're just here to share what we think works, what's worked well for us, what hasn't worked for us. And then ultimately, you're a man, you're an individual. You make your own decisions. You're a big boy. So take everything that we say with a grain of salt and make a decision like a man would by taking advice, applying what you feel is relevant to you and disregarding what you feel isn't, and make your decisions and be satisfied with the decisions you're making.
Yeah. Jack Collins, what are your strategies for remaining disciplined and committed when the feelings of motivation are not present?
Well, that's the point. That's the point of discipline. That is discipline.
Yeah.
Discipline is what you do when the feeling of motivation and excitement and rah-rah has worn off. The emotion has worn off.
Yeah.
That is the point. So what do you do?
Yeah. Let's reword it for him. What strategies do you do when you're not feeling motivated and you want to continue to take action and be committed to?
So before, it's hard to be specific because it's so broad. Like, are you talking about exercise? Are you talking about jiu-jitsu? Are you talking about dieting? Are you talking about in my business? Are you talking about managing my bank account? So we have to talk in principles as opposed to like very practical approach. But before the feeling of motivation wears off, you need to put the systems and processes in place. So for example, let's say that you have dubbed that you are not a quote unquote morning person. That's what you've assigned yourself. That's how you've identified. I'm not a morning person. And then you listen to something or you read something or you hear something and you think, I'm going to start being a morning person. And you're all hopped up because you're like, I'm going to get up 2 hours early before everybody else, and I'm going to get this done, and I'm going to get that done, and then I'm going to have all this energy throughout the day, and it's going to be amazing because I saw this person do it, and this guy was doing it, and he's successful, and that person's got this going on, so I'm going to do that. Hey, look, there's nothing wrong with being motivated. There's nothing wrong with fostering some external excitement and channeling it into how it might improve your own life. But the very next step is, okay, what am I going to do to ensure that happens? It's not enough. Excitement is not enough because you know it's going to wear off. So if we're talking about getting up earlier, because again, we don't have the context of this question. Well, what's kept you from getting up in the past? Well, I'm tired because I only get 5 hours of sleep. Check. I need to go to bed earlier. Yeah. Well, every time I wake up, I just hit the snooze button. Got it. Move your phone away from you because you're naturally going to want to hit the snooze button. I'd like to get up, but I don't want to wake up my wife or my kids. Cool. Go put all your clothes and everything else in the bathroom so when you wake up, or a guest room. So when you wake up, you go in that room and you don't disturb or bother anybody. Start thinking about all the reasons you haven't done what you want to do up to this point. Because I can guarantee you getting up early, or you being more engaged with your wife, or you balancing your checkbook, or you starting to exercise, or you starting to eat right, this isn't the first time you've ever thought about it.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then why haven't you done it up to this point? Once you identify why and all the reasons why, you can start coming up with a plan to ensure that those things don't deter you from doing what you want to do this time. So just take a little negative framing, if you will. Think about what's happened in the past and why you haven't had success in this area, and build all the little strategies and plans in place that respond or answer or solve that problem or those problems.
Yeah. Love it. Okay, Chris Babber, what's the story on the knife? I told you I'd ask.
The knife?
I should have confirmed this question first. Something about the story about the knife. I'm assuming you made some mention somewhere on Facebook or in a conversation.
Are these old questions?
This is from 3 weeks.
Okay. I think I know what he's referring to. Okay. So a lot of the guys know we bought this property out in Maine. We've been here for, I want to say we've been here now for 3.5 months or so, somewhere right in there. Yeah. And it has this big, beautiful barn attached to it. And over the past, specifically when I got here, I took about a month to 5 weeks and really renovated the bottom, the main level of it, because we had our event, the main event. And upstairs there's how would you call it? Like a deck or something, or like a
kind of a deck.
Yeah,
I'd use that term.
Yeah, it's basically it's like a deck on both sides on the second floor, both sides of the barn. And as I'm walking up the stairs, it's got a bunch of junk, so I got to clean all that out, and I got to sweep up the bird poo and all that stuff, right? So I'm doing that. And I walk up the stairs and I look up, and there's a kitchen knife, like a butcher's, not a butcher's knife, but like a kitchen knife, like a sharp kitchen
fairly
knife.
Big one.
Yes, not like a butter knife, but like a big meat knife, not like a cleaver, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it's like at eye level, and it's just stuck into the wood, right there, just stuck into the wood, and it looks like it's freshly sharpened and. It's just chilling right there. No rhyme or reason. There's no like target that somebody's throwing at. There's no blood on it, which is good. It's just chilling in there. And so I think I made a post on Instagram or Facebook and said, I don't know if this knife at head level when I come up the stairs is a real pleasing thing to think about. I said something like that, The guys are wondering what the story of the knife was. I don't know what the story of the knife was. If I knew, I would tell you guys, but I have no idea. There's just a random sharpened kitchen knife, head level, on the second floor, pegged into the wood, and I just left it there.
You think Brecken or?
No. It was there before. No.
Okay.
No, it was there before we got there.
Huh. That's funny.
So
there you go.
Maybe,
I was waiting for a huge buildup there.
There's no
You
build
make
up.
up the
I don't
story.
know. I was just trying to keep you guys engaged. I don't know what the story is.
That's
All I
funny.
know is that there's a kitchen knife stabbed into the side of my barn at head level when you come up the stairs. And I left it there. I'm like, well, somebody wanted it here for some reason. So I'm not going to tempt the spirits by pulling it out of here. So I'm leaving the knife in the barn. The only time I'll take it out of there is when we have our legacy event, the father-son event, and we'll have kids running around. Then I'll take the knife out, and the kids can be terrorized by the ghost that wants the knife in the barn. And then when they leave, I'll put it back so the ghost goes and leaves me alone.
Yeah. Just harass the boys when they show up.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Way to start that off.
How are we doing on questions? Are we close? Let's take a couple more if we have them.
Yeah.
And call it a day.
Yeah. Let's do a couple more then. Noah John, what up and coming online business trend would you start today if you had the time, assuming startup capital and prior experience is not an issue?
I'm not thinking about anything else but Order of Man.
Yeah. And no, I don't know if I want to share my idea here on this podcast with a bunch of guys listening to it.
Yeah, great point. That's a hard one for me to answer because I'm so focused on Order of Man that I haven't thought like, well, if I wasn't doing Order of Man, I would be doing this. I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I do believe, I will say this. I do believe that as we delve deeper into the realm of technology and social media, that there's a newfound connection and an expanded connection across the planet, across the globe. But there's also a disconnection from the people who are sitting at your kitchen table.
Yeah.
Or a neighbor across the street, or somebody you work with, that you share an office with. So I think as we continue to go down this technological route, that there will be a need and a strong desire for face-to-face personal interaction. And that, I believe, is a trend we will continue to see go up. Outside of that, AI is obviously huge. I mean, something I completely disagree with, but I imagine will really ramp up is robots, specifically sex robots. Like, I'm not saying I would engage in that, but that's going to be a trend, unfortunately. Yeah. There's a lot of things that I think are maybe immoral that we will see a lot more of. And so I choose to take hopefully a more what I would consider moral route. Again, focusing on the face-to-face and human interaction side of things.
Cool.
Did you have any thoughts on that?
Man, I mean, there's all kinds of trends from the tech side, right? That I could talk. I don't want to bore anybody. There's a few things that I feel like are kind of in the hopper that I'm looking into. So I guess you're going to have to stay tuned.
Sex bots.
Yeah. No, not that at all. By the way, I was in the kitchen and I thought, I need my dose of Friday Field Notes from Order Man podcast. So we have an Echo Show right in the kitchen. It's like an Echo device, Alexa device.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Echo, play Order Man podcast. And it says, you cannot listen to this podcast when you have explicit content blocked.
Oh, really? That's
like,
funny. I think YouTube is like demonetizes our program or something if we swear. Like, they'll take video if we swear. It's just certain swear words, though. It's not all of them. It's just the ones they don't like. So I think we can say hell and damn and shit maybe. But if we get any more vulgar than that, then they demonetize us.
Copy. Well, we're done pretty good until just now. And
I just figured let's lump it all together and just get it out of the way.
All right. Last question. Cody Allen Myers. Couldn't think of a question, but I do want to say I love what you're doing and I always look forward to your posts and your podcasts. Got a wife and 2 young toddlers, and there's a lot of things in life that I can be better at. My goal is to one day live on my own terms, be home, and present and be more present more in my family's life.
A worthy goal.
Yeah.
I think that's what all of us want to a degree.
For sure. And I think I don't know. I know Cody's not asking for any feedback here, but I'm going to give it to you anyway.
And you have to
a lot of that goal you can do today.
Agreed.
Right. Live today on my own terms. Be more present with my family at home. Like do it today. Don't make that a goal. just be that way.
I don't know if I shared with you. You're exactly right, Kip. I may have shared this with you. I was walking in my field. This was probably a week or two ago, and I don't know why, but I started to think about my own mortality.
Mm.
And I wasn't going to a dark place, but I was just thinking to myself, I'm getting older, 38 years old. Not old, I'm not young.
Yeah.
I'm almost 40. That seems crazy. My 20-year class reunion was, I think, last month. I didn't go to it, but it was last month. And I just thought, I'm really starting to get up there in age a little bit. And it's going fast. I was looking at my 11-year-old son and thinking, 7 years, he's gone, man. He's out of the house.
Yeah.
And then as I was thinking about this, I got thinking about how long it took me to get to where I am today. And I don't mean physically, because physically I'm in a good spot. We're in this home. We're in a beautiful area. We have the property. We have the financial means to be able to live this sort of lifestyle. But that's not what I'm talking about. I just feel fulfilled. I feel like I'm pursuing something that's meaningful, that's engaging, that I'm deeply committed to, that resonates with me, that lights me up in a way that nothing else ever has before. And I wish I would have got here sooner. Now, maybe I was incapable of getting here sooner. And that's kind of the weird paradox, is that there's a level of maturity required to get to that point. Could I have got here at 20? Probably not, because I wasn't focused on those things and I wasn't in the space to be able to do it. But it also reminds me that there's so many of us who have goals and have aspirations and have things that we want. And in the very next breath, after saying or thinking about these things, we start the next sentence with but.
Yeah.
But I've got this, and but I'm this, and but
bad timing. Yeah.
Everything, but the timing's off. Yeah. Right, exactly. All of this kind of thing. And I think you are going to die. You are going to die. Today, tomorrow, in 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, you are going to die. And man, if that doesn't put things in perspective, I don't know what else does. I was walking around hunting with my boys over the past couple of days, and I made a post on Instagram yesterday, and it said, I don't have a motivational quote for you. I don't have a picture of me with some well-known celebrity. I'm not at some exotic location doing some crazy stunt or even anything all that exciting. All it is me and my two boys, their dog, and a shotgun, and me as a father whose heart is full. And that's where I'm at, because I feel like I'm pursuing things that are meaningful to me, not things that I'm told I should be pursuing, not following somebody else's dreams or ambitions, but following my own, realizing that we live a very, very short life, and I want to capitalize on it in a way that's significant to me.
Totally. And I think at the root for most guys that might struggle with wanting to be in that same space as you, Ryan, it's the common pitfall that we think that our circumstances determine how we show up.
Sure. Yeah.
We think, oh, well, if my wife would do our marriage would be better. Oh, if I had this money, then I would be this way. Like we think circumstances dictate how we show up and who we choose to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the irony is, all that does is causes us to procrastinate the fulfillment of who we can become as men. And we wait for the stars to align, for circumstances to work out, so that way I can be more present to my family, so I can be this way, so I can show up a different way. And it's highly inaccurate. Most of those things none of us even have control over.
Right.
Sometimes you're not in control of your circumstances, but in spite of them, you can still be fulfilled if you choose to be a certain way, regardless of your circumstances. And I think, I don't know, it's just so funny how that's such a default human behavior, that we think it's the outside things that need to change for us to be that way.
Yeah.
And to your point, it's like, it doesn't matter what today is. If you show up a certain way, you can be fulfilled today.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a conscious choice that we all have to make.
Yeah. There's a great book on the subject by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. I mean, everything was taken from this man during the Holocaust, and he was in Auschwitz, I believe.
Yeah.
Concentration camp for sure, but I believe it was Auschwitz.
Yeah, it was, I think.
Anyways, really powerful read about finding meaning and clarity and purpose in the most dire situations. So go check that out.
Yeah.
Man, that's a long answer on both of our parts for a guy who didn't even ask a question.
Oh, that's true.
Anyways, we appreciate the support and we're glad you're with us. I think maybe that's what he was looking for.
Yeah. Thanks, Cody. Yeah,
all right.
sure.
That's it. All right. Great questions today, guys. Really appreciate the thoughtful questions. Hopefully we gave you some considerations that will serve you well. That's ultimately the goal. We want to give you the tools and ideas and perspectives that are going to help you become a more capable man, whatever that looks like for you. So I'll turn it to you, Kip, to take us home, and we'll call it a day.
Okay. Sounds good. October 1st, Tribe Builder starts. That spot is going to fill up. So you guys need to act immediately. That's going to start next week.
Yeah.
So you have this week to get in there and get registered. The Tribe Builder course, Ryan, I don't know if you want me to kind of give a summary, but this is a month long. I think it's 5 weeks or 4 week long training around how to build a tribe, whatever that tribe is.
And I would say not just a tribe, but a digital tribe. Very similar to what we've been doing here with Order of Man. You're trying to create an online movement, and you want to use Order of Man as the framework or the foundation for what you want to create, then this would be the course for you. orderofman.com/tribe builder.
Yep. And taught by Ryan during that period of time.
Correct.
Our other event, which is probably sold out, but I don't know if you're on the fence.
I may open a few more spots for it.
Okay.
So go ahead and share.
If you're really pressing, May 29th through May 31st, 2020, that is the Order of Man main event. To learn more, that's orderofman.com/main event. And for Iron Council members, there's a dinner the night of the 28th as part of that event. So if you're on the fence, you got to act. Go to that website URL and get registered right away.
I would also say on that, Kip, that video that Will did for us highlighting the event is absolutely phenomenal. I just put it on YouTube last week. I think we have close to 80,000 views on that video as of right now. So if you want to see what it's all about, you can go to YouTube, youtube.com/orderofman, and you can get a recap of the video. It's called The World is Starving for Men. Or you can go to orderofman.com/main event, and the video is there on that page as well.
Cool. And to receive other announcements of happenings of what's going on with the Order of Man or the Iron Council, or just to follow Ryan in general and what's happening in his life, you can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Ryan Michler. Of course, to get your questions submitted to the Ask Me Anything episode, you could do so by joining us on Facebook. You don't even have to submit a question, but you can join us on Facebook anyway and be part of the conversations that are happening there with 60K plus men. That's facebook.com/group/Order of Man. And of course, from time to time, we talked about it. We didn't talk about it too much today. We did talk about battle plans. And the battle plan is really, think of it as kind of our guide and toolbox for effectiveness within
Think about it
Council.
as the answer to everything.
The answer to everything is the battle plan. So if you want to get on the same court with a bunch of other men working on their battle plans and leveling up to become better and more fulfilled in life, you can join us in the Iron Council to learn more about the Iron Council. That's orderofman.com/Iron Council. And if you feel like going on your own and you want that battle plan, visit the store. That's store.orderofman.com. You can get a battle planner there. You can get t-shirts, hats, swags, decal, things that kind of represent the order. I cannot say how fun it is to wear an Order of Man swag. And the only reason why is because I know when someone recognizes it. Sometimes guys will mention it. You'll get like the look and the nod.
Yep. And then you go for the special handshake, then
the
really
special handshake. Yeah. In fact, we need like a gang sign or something that we can maybe use. Or what's even cool is jumping on social media, is like checking my Instagram feeds, and Josh, a cousin of mine, he's in New York and he has his Order of Man t-shirt on. I'm like,
Sweet.
nice shirt. Yeah. So
Sweet.
it's just fun to kind of see it out there. So
yeah, here's a cool thing we can do. If you tag Order of Man on your post with your swag on Instagram, then each week we'll pick one out and we'll do a shout out on the AMA.
I like that.
All right, we'll do that. Just tag Order of Man, tag me, tag Kip on Instagram, and then we'll take the entries. We'll give you a shout out on this podcast. All right, you guys have now 37 things exactly to do after this podcast and 37 places to go. So we'll call it a day with that. Kip, I appreciate you, brother. Guys, appreciate your questions. And again, hopefully we've given you some value. All right, guys, go out there, take action, become the man you are meant to be.